Hey everyone, my name's Alex. I'm from UC San Diego. Super happy to be here today and talk about our paper, Understanding the Viability of Gmail's Origin Indicator for Identifying the Sender. So imagine one day this email claiming to be from Chase arrived at your inbox. How do you know that Chase actually sent the email? So when email was first created, there was no authentication mechanism built in to actually authenticate an email. So the community has proposed a few mechanisms post hoc to authenticate emails. And one of the most widely used way is by authenticating the server that actually sends the email. So the way it works is that if an email claims to be from Chase, you look at the server that actually sends the email. If Chase happens to also control the server that sends the email, we consider this email as authenticated. On the other hand, if we cannot verify that Chase actually controls the sending server, we'll just mark this email as suspicious or even reject it. This works great back in the days when an email is directly sent from the sender to the recipient. However, things have got a little bit more complicated these days. For example, businesses like Chase may need to massively send emails. So what they would do is they would outsource this capability to a third-party provider such as MailChimp. And MailChimp will send emails on behalf of Chase. Another example for big companies, when they grow big enough, there are independently operated branches that may also need to send on behalf of Chase as well. So both of these cases are pretty common these days. However, this does create a problem. If you think about the authentication mechanism that I just talked about, the sending servers here are not directly controlled by Chase anymore, right? They're controlled by a third party that may or may not have anything to do with Chase. So how do we solve this problem? From Gmail's perspective, they still want to deliver the email because deliverability is key to their business. However, doing this comes with some risks. Specific past literature has shown that the sending servers here can be exploited by adversaries to send malicious emails or spoofed emails, to be more specific. And from Gmail's perspective, they cannot decide whenever they get an email like this, they cannot decide whether it's sent by a malicious actor or not. All they know is that the sending server is, all they know is that the email claims to be from Chase, but the sending server is controlled by a different party. So what is their solution here? So Gmail's solution is that they will still deliver the email, but they would push the problem to end users. Specifically, they will show you an email that looks like this. What you're seeing here is that they will still give you the email, but after the email address, they will have an indicator that signals some potential risk. So here you see the indicator says via chasesupport.com. So what the indicator is here to say, hey, you know, the email is claiming to be from Chase, but the server that actually sends the email is a different party with the domain name chasesupport.com. And we call this indicator the via indicator. And now it has become a usability problem because for the indicator to work, right, for it to signal the risk, users have to be able to notice it. Users also have to be able to understand the message that it's trying to convey. Before I move on, I just want to quickly define two things here. So we're going to refer to the domain that's displayed after via as the, I'm just going to call the domain that shows up after via as the via domain. And then I'm going to refer to the part that's before via the claim sender or Chase for the rest of this presentation. Cool. So since it's a usability problem, we want to understand how real-world users would deal with it. Specifically, we want to understand how if real-world users actually notice the indicator and if they use the indicator to make any decision. And then, obviously, since it's a usability problem, we need participants. So we recruited our participant from Prolific, and we have 180 Gmail users in total, and the majority of them are experienced Gmail users. So all of our participants are shown the same email body, which is shown here. We adopted this email from a real Chase email. The difference among the groups is really the headers that they see. So the first group, so for this first group of participants, they see an email header without the via indicator. So we term this group the control group. And moving on, we have another group of users who see a header with the indicator that says via chasesupport.com. So the goal here is to simulate a case where the VIA domain at least looks familiar to the users. And lastly, the last group of users see a VIA indicator that says VIA R1xaz.xyz. So this random looking domain is to simulate a case where the VIA domain is not familiar to users. All right, so with this setup, we are ready to answer a few research questions. So we started by asking the most simple questions: do users notice the VIA indicator at all? So overall, in our study, 89% of the participants did report that they noticed VIA during the study. So we're happy to conclude that users did notice the VIA indicator most of the times. And since most users did notice the indicator, we follow up with the question: does the VIA indicator nudge them to make safer actions? So to answer this question, so the way we answer this question is by looking at what actions users would take when they're presented with the email. So we adopted this list of actions from prior work, and users are free can select all the actions that apply. And now we are ready to compare the actions across different groups. You don't have to read this whole table. I'm just going to walk you through some of the most important results. So the first thing we look at here is the first action, which is click button in the email. This is what we consider a more dangerous option. And if you just eyeball the numbers are actually not that different across three groups. And and similarly, we see that for the two actions highlighted here, which we consider more safer actions, the numbers are also not that different. And in fact, we actually performed tests of proportion to compare the numbers across groups, and we did not see we see no statistical significant difference across different groups. So our conclusion here is that while most of the users did notice VIA, VIA does not nudge users to make safer options, or not significant, or the effect is not significant enough. So moving on, we are shifting our angle a little bit. So we are looking at this problem from the user comprehension's perspective now. So we started by asking the question: do users know what the VIA indicator means? So overall, the result is positive. Specific 32% of our participants says VIA means through, let's say means through intermediary. Another 31% of the users say VIA indicates the actual sender of the email. So in either case, users do grasp the idea that there's a third party involved in sending this email. So this is encouraging. And in addition to what I just talked about, we also found that the VIA domain actually heavily impacts users' understanding as well. For example, users may think Chase and ChaseSupport.com are just a different department of the same company, whereas in reality, Chase.com and ChaseSupport.com can be controlled by two different entities, and they don't necessarily have anything to do with each other. So here here our conclusion is that yes, users do understand that VIA users do understand the meaning that VIA conveys, which is there's a third party involved in sending this email. However, we do want to note that the VIA domain also affects the information conveyed. And since majority of the users did realize that there's a third party involved, we follow up with this question: do users understand that VIA does not signal the relationship between Chase and the third party? Well, basically from so the VIA indicator is there to say, hey, the email is claiming to be from Chase, but the actual server is this third party domain. It does not say it does not signal the relationship at all. So unfortunately, we do not see the results that we were expecting. Even for the VIA domain that has random looking, that looks like a random domain, over half of the participants still believe that Chase used that random domain to send an email. So this is a little bit unfortunate. And in addition, similar to the previous research question, we also found that the VIA domain has an impact in terms on users' perceptions as well. For example, here, users may think Chase Support is part of Chase. They're from the same company, and once again, they don't necessarily have that doesn't have to be the case. All right, so here our conclusion is that Unfortunately, while most users did understand that there's a third party involved, they did not understand that VIA does not signal the relationship, and they did not grasp the risk there as well. And similarly, the VIA domain also affects users' perception of the relationship between Chase and the third party. All right, moving forward, we see at least two paths forward. So one path is if we want to keep VIA around, we can keep improving it. So I list a bunch of options here. One option is that we can probably augment the VIA domain with some domain information, and prior work has done some of those studies, and there's also a bunch of other options that we listed here. Another path forward is just thinking about, do we really need it here, right? One of the reasons is, so Sarah, our previous speaker, had a paper last year talking about headers are not super useful for phishing detection. So maybe we should rethink whether we want the VIA indicator there or not in the first place. All right, just to summarize what I just talked about, this paper focused on understanding the viability of Gmail's VIA indicator. We found that while majority of the users did notice the indicator did not effectively nudge users to take safer actions. And similarly, while most of the users did understand that a third party was involved, they did not understand the risk and the relationship between Chase and the third party. And finally, we found that the information conveyed by the indicator is heavily domain sensitive. And with that, thank you very much, and I'm happy to take questions.